not only in this area of town, but throughout the community.
Lots of comparisons for homeless, about 100. Lots of compassion for homeless, about 100. What about the workers in the business park, 100? Why are the needs of the homeless a priority over the needs of the workers? Their actions are causing stress on so many more people. Why is Santa Rosa Police not enforcing camping laws?
Well, it's not just about enforcing camping laws. That's just one element of, or an enforcement approach. At this particular point, like I said, we address public safety as it materializes. We try to be a deterrent, and it's very difficult for the officers to balance the needs of the business owner, of the property owner, the advocate groups, the politicians, their bosses at the police department, while they're still catering to the law, city ordinances, and all of those different influences. So the officers make those decisions based on the information that they have, given every call for service that they respond to.
What about the residents of Corporate Center Parkway that timed out of Sam Jones or were evicted from the Palm?
So if the Sam Jones Hall does have a 6-month time limit, but as soon as somebody leaves the program, they are eligible to get back in, either through the coordinated entry, 138 beds, or through the 75 beds we have as a part of this pilot encampment program. And those beds are specific for when we're working with the camp. And so if the person is in this camp, then they are eligible for one of those 75 beds. They can bypass the coordinated entry process and get directly placed into a bed. In terms of the Palms Inn, we have a variety of other types of housing options, but the Palms Inn, just because it did not work out at that moment, doesn't mean that someone could not get back in the future. The biggest issue with the Palms Inn is that we have a 95% retention rate, and so we don't have a lot of units that actually come available on any given moment. So the turnover rate positively is low there, because that means people are staying housed or graduating into other programs, because that is a permanent housing placement program.
A related question, and my understanding is that the Palms is run by the Veterans Administration.
You wish. I wish. No, no, the Palms Inn is a partnership between Catholic Charities and the Veterans Administration. Catholic Charities operates the property management, the 24/7 staffing, the after-hours counseling, and case management for 44 units. 60 of the units are for veterans, 44 for people who are experiencing chronic homelessness. But the Veterans Administration, their only role in the program is to actually provide the vouchers and to provide case management for the 60 veterans. So Catholic Charities actually operates the Palms Inn in coordination with the VA, as well as several other community partners that are a part of the project.
This question is pretty general, so I'll give it to police, and I'm assuming they mean relative to the corporate center area. How many police calls per week? Any information there?
Yeah, we've, over the last 2 months, looking at the statistics, we've had about 150 calls for service in this area, and that's over a 60-day period. I don't have that information, but we have it for the last 2 months.
Will there be hazmat services provided by the city or county to clean up the areas where the homeless residents come in? Use the restroom.
There's no plan for any services at the time, but the fire department, public works, and police department continue to respond to several incidents, including leaking cooling, leaking gasoline, leaking oil, as well as human waste. So that is a common response for us, that then requires response to several other departments to come and clean up the issues and the spills that are occurring. That's part of what's occurring tomorrow. Is we are required to comply with state laws for protecting our stormwater and our creeks, and a lot of the impacts that are occurring out there are affecting that water quality. So that's part of why that cleanup is occurring tomorrow.
When will the RV park that Jenny Lynn mentioned become available? Before mid-September?
So we we aren't, just to be clear, we are not creating an RV park. These are existing RV parks that we're working with individuals to get placed into. So we'll be looking at RV parks across the county. The funding is available immediately. The more pressing issue is getting the RVs into compliance. RV parks do have certain eligibility criteria for somebody to meet, including being registered, insured, so on and so forth, which is why we're coordinating with these other advocacy groups to help get the RVs into compliance so that we can then do the placement into an existing RV camp.
Give us more time.
What is the problem that Rick mentioned with regard to weight capacity towing of RVs?
Basically, the RVs are bigger than we have the capacity to tow with the tow companies we're using. They're also expensive to dispose of. So we're working through those problems. It's going to take a little bit of time, a little bit of coordination. No one ever anticipated having to tow a large number of RVs, and we hope it doesn't come to that, but we have to have a process in place, and that's what we're working through.
What is being done to get children off the street?
So we have our Family Support Center, which is a 138-bed shelter for families who are experiencing homelessness in downtown Santa Rosa. Our street outreach team, as soon as if we do find a family out living on the streets, which actually is not very common, there's a very low unsheltered rate among families experiencing homelessness, we will place them into a shelter as quickly as we can. We will make sure our dining room is open, our hallways are open, whatever we can make accommodated for the individual until we can get them to a regular bed through our family shelter programs.
This may have already been answered. It's about the RVs, and it's what about trailers without motors in the RV park? Anything to add? And the answer to one of the things earlier about the challenge of towing these larger sized vehicles. I'm in recovery. What am I to do when the shelter is full of drugs and alcohol?
So part of the Housing First strategy and programs is to work with individuals no matter where they're at in their recovery process. So the major components that we're working with is helping people with individualized recovery plans if that's what they need, or getting them into the right treatment programs if they need a totally clean and sober environment. There's a couple of things driving the policy change. A is the evidence behind following this model, but B is also a funding. At the city, county, state, and federal level, they are requiring shelters to move to what's called a harm reduction model. But most importantly is to understand the basis of what an emergency shelter is. And an emergency shelter really is for somebody who is experiencing homelessness that needs to find placement, whether they are under the influence or not. What is most important in the shelter is to manage the behavior. We don't predicate the behavior on whether someone is, under the influence or not. It's about the behavior. There have been certainly indications that we've had in our shelters where somebody who was completely clean and sober had a behavior that was not conducive to communal living, as well as on the other side as well. So it's not about whether somebody is using actively or not. It's about the behavior and making sure we're creating pathways for people no matter what they're struggling with in their life at that moment.
I got some feedback that the question before the last one wasn't answered. So what about trailers, or what at trailers without motors in RV parks? So I think what we thought was the answer is not about towing, but about the appropriateness or option to have them there.
I'll chime in and just say that public streets are not an RV park. It's not a place where we're going to park items that don't typically move. You don't generally see things like boats and trailers parked along the street, and that's not the intention of the street. So while we're working through a process on how to address those specific issues, the public street itself is not an RV park. It's not the appropriate and right place for a trailer that's non-mobile to be placed in that location.
Well, we know that. Can we go to the park?
So we'll go through the questions, and there actually will be around afterwards, after we've gotten through these, and if there's specific questions that you guys want to field with some of us, we'll put that in the viewer. As a business owner who brings clients to our facilities, how will the first impression be justified? I think this is an expression of frustration. There's not really an answer in it. We recognize it as a problem. I think we've answered this a bit, but we'll get to it again. Why are the encampment people allowed to break laws by living on